Part 3 of the Fae Wars. So, as the wars continued on, more and more of the light Fae became corrupted, and that is where the vampire matrix began to infuse in with the Fae matrix. A lot of the light Fae, because they were using source consciousness to channel elemental frequencies. Unfortunately, when they became so traumatized by the war with the Dark Fae, who had created these really, really powerful technology to be able to harness elemental energy, the Light Fae could not catch up in time to be able to fight the Dark Fae with their technology. They could not, because these societies had split so much, they weren't connected. Some of them even created different worlds and different realities, so they really were not able to train each other, and there was so much prejudice. It was almost an incredible culture divide. And there were often, like in some of the Fae tribes, if you were caught consorting, even talking to a light Fae, your dark Fae tribe would kill you, and vice versa. You would be imprisoned, or even worse, like you would be forever shunned by the light Fae societies if you were caught even talking to a dark Fae. So yeah, they had very, very serious laws for even talking to each other. So you can imagine during the war, these Dark Fae had incredible technology that was able to overpower the Light Fae and kill them. A lot of these beings were also physically immortal. So you can imagine the trauma that they experienced watching their loved ones that they've known for 1,000, maybe 2,000, 3,000 years die in front of them. The trauma was more than their minds could take. They cracked. And so what the Light Fae did was they made an alliance with the vampire tribes. And it happened because of trauma. They started having dreams about these dimensional beings called what we call vampires, who are able to siphon life force off of other beings and consume it in order to make themselves ultimately indestructible. So that was when the Light Fae actually were the ones to open up the portals to the vampire dimensions. And they were using the vampires, turning themselves into vampires so they could fight the Dark Fae. It was so, I've had so many dreams about this war. It was so devastating and brutal and torturous. It makes our wars look like playthings. Because they fought on many different levels. It wasn't just a physical fight. They would fight in the astral realm. They would also fight in the elemental realm. Like, there were vampires out there that they could curse the ground that anyone would walk on. There was this one place that I went to. I was with, it must have been a memory of another Fae, but I was with a bunch of light Fae that were fighting against the vampire Fae. So then there were factions. There were factions of light Fae that wanted to return to peace and harmony with nature. But then the light Fae who had been corrupted by the war and become vampiric, they were not having it. They wanted to destroy all the Dark Fae. They wanted no more Dark Fae to exist on any of the planets in any of the dimensions. And the Dark Fae were quite willing to kill both the vampiric Light Fae and the Light Fae. They had no problems. And so it was just this all-on, like, wanting to annihilate the opposition. And this group, I was in a group of Light Fae that wanted to help heal the Light Fae so that you'd walk away from their vampiric tendencies. And we were going into this coven. It was like a coven of Fae magic users, and they had corrupted the trees so that the trees would actually eat your life force as you walk through the forest. And I watched every one of my friends being dissolved bit by bit. They would have their arms just fall off, like they would start to begin to decay and disintegrate amongst these trees, because the trees were programmed by these vampiric light fae to create this sort of like siphoning force. And so then those vampiric fae, they would feed off of the sap of these trees to regain their strength and become invincible. And so when I had found that out, me and a couple of other of the people in the troop with me, we started feeding. We decided, okay, well, we'll have to drink the sap in order to survive. The problem is it made us vampires. And so we unfortunately had to deal with the fact that we could never see sunlight again, that, and it's all very similar mythos. You can't go out in the sun. You can't, there are certain things that you can't tolerate, certain plants, certain energies. And it was really devastating. Eventually, I think in that lifetime, I killed myself by going out in the sun. I just self-immolated. I was just like, I can't do this. I can't fight this. And so this torture bled over into Midgard, into this reality, into Earth, and it really didn't calm down till about 1,000 years ago. I think 1,000 years ago, really, a lot of the Fae Wars had fizzled out. A lot of them had annihilated each other. There were no more Faes in Fae bodies. They're in bodies of other beings across the freaking cosmos, because they were so broken and so tortured. So many of us who have Fae souls, who existed in the Fae realms and died in these wars, carry with us the trauma from those times. And last night I had this dream that I was in a Fae village, and I was really surprised. It was quite functional and very old-fashioned, like I remembered the ancient Fae villages to be. And so the ancient Fae villages, the way they existed was that everyone befriended a tree. So the dryads and the Fae were always very uniquely tied together. Every family, every person, every Fae being, whether you're an elf, gnome, sylph, whatever you are, you had a tree ally, and you're wedded to your tree, and your tree would grow your house. And so every child, when they grow up, they would be given a seed, and they would plant their tree, and then they would grow their own house. And so houses and everything was grown. It was loved and nourished into being. And so they didn't have property, and they didn't have things that we think of here. So your special tree, if it got cut down, you would go to the priests, and they would give you a new seed, and then you would have to regrow your tree. But it was a very long process. But if you think about it, if you as an elf or a Fae, you live for 5,000 years, it's no problem to grow another tree. It's gonna be grown in about 100 years. So the trees in the Pleiades, they grow any kind of material. So you can sing to the tree, and let's say you need new clothes, you need weapons, you need tools. The tree will grow that for you, and it would grow these fruit. So every tree was sentient and conscious and patterned to each Fae. And so the trees produced fruit based upon the connection, how good that connection was. And basically whatever the Fae could imagine, the tree would produce. If the Fae wanted to live in a castle, the tree would grow a castle from its roots. And so this was the village that I went to last night. It was a tree village where each Fae had a tree, and the tree was growing a house for them, and providing food and shelter and clothing.